Welcome to my first ever video. It's a United States Battle Royale. Let's get started, by the way. If this is bad, don't give any hate, because I suck at videos. Okay, anyways. First thing that forms in here is a union between Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and I think that's it. Yeah. Leaves New York threatened because they are like, I'm next to another big power. I do not want this. So they declare war immediately. But they are going to join, two places are going to join an alliance. First thing, these guys joined the North, they call this the Northeast Alliance with Delaware, New Jersey, and New England. And then they call this the Powerhouse Alliance with New York. There's Long Island, Texas, California, Florida, and Alaska because of their size. So they are both in a alliance with a lot of people. So I'm just saying that the North might be screwed. But first thing that happens is New York starts pushing through some of the borders, going south. Since there's no one that these guys can really reach, they're just sending their economical aid to New York and helping them. So they do get a better border with their territory. And that's when Delaware pulls in Italy. They join the other alliance somehow. They get accepted. And then they start pushing into New Jersey, which is not good for the Red Alliance or the Northeast Alliance. Leaving the South, leaving New Jersey in shambles. New Jersey eventually does go for the surrender. That's like a month in to this war, where something else happens. They start actually making some more territory gains and try, and then they go through a spearhead to cut it off. They take a big chunk of their lands. It's hard to really push back for them because there's a whole economical powerhouse. This side's more stable than the southern side, which leads the south side to capitulate. And now it's down here where they decide to draw a peace treaty. This is where we see them follow their military claims to where Northeast Alliance is kind of screwed, but New Jersey becomes a puppet state. Delaware gains a lot of lands, and these guys decide, hey, we're kind of big, we'll join you guys. So now this alliance is spreading, but the not a lot of population alliance does appear out of nowhere. Montana, Colorado, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska, and Iowa. And then the next thing happens. Later, due to the growing tensions between Wisconsin and Michigan, they have Wisconsin join a alliance with Ohio because they both have some tensions with Michigan, and later Michigan does form an alliance and form what we will call the Northern Alliance with some northern countries / states with Michigan, Minnesota, and Indiana. So immediately, once the war starts, Ohio immediately starts pushing through the front areas so it can kind of get closer, and they cut Indiana off from allies. And then they make a huge advancement through the second peninsula of Michigan. So now, things aren't looking good for the Northern Alliance. But they are getting outside support from another state, which eventually does join the alliance, Pennsylvania, which does eventually start pushing into Ohio. This isn't good, as Ohio is suffering due to radioactive mess from another spill train. By the way, this is fictional, don't get mad at me. But they start pushing back some areas and push into some areas, including with Minnesota. It's me, Mario. So they continue until they kind of find a way to split off Wisconsin, and then Wisconsin's northern and eastern part capitulate to that side. So they do connect their masses of lands. That's when the yellow team decides, you know what, we're going to try to draw up a peace treaty, but that's only after Pennsylvania gets a huge landing. So, Ohio does not lose a lot of land and gains some land. Pennsylvania gains some land. Wisconsin gets the occupied borders treatment and also becomes almost landlocked, since it did get the treatment of the borders. Some other nations' areas that they occupied are now owned by the state that the borders are in. So now Ohio gets its old claims back. Same thing with these two. They make a little border, kind of like this. I'll say they'll rewrite their border, and this is the new thing. And eventually they realize that they should. Ohio's like, I don't want to join them. They're rude. So, but Wisconsin does join them, which leads Ohio to join another alliance. And this will be called the East Coast Alliance, including Maryland, West Virginia, Kentucky, and North Carolina. And then later, a new alliance springs out. Another East Coast alliance with South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, and Georgia. And tensions have been going through these three sides, not Pennsylvania's side, these three sides. So eventually they declare war. Ohio does not participate as much as they did in the last war, because they've just been out of a war. They do eventually take the Virginian Peninsula, and then they do start actually pushing through with Virginia around DC and capture DC because DC doesn't need to exist, and takes a swoop at it. Maryland is trying to fix their borders, and this little area, and they do try to form some puppet states that they could use. Like, this side could be a puppet state that they think can be useful, quote unquote. So they do that. So they immediately capture all of that lands. So now that they are going through, they do start actually making progression into the power lines, because Florida taking Georgia's southernness, they declare war, and they just realize that they would be kind of on the side. So they do start attacking Georgia. Georgia does start attacking and tries to get Tallahassee. Capture successes, which does lead both sides of Florida to surrender because of the capturing of their capital, which isn't very stable for them now. So now Georgia owns all of that land for now until we draw up the peace treaty. And now they start pushing into North Carolina from there. And Virginia does go take back their peninsula and goes up and attacks some Delaware. So these borders are getting interesting, and they do gain some lands from their thinking, because they don't want them to be able to make a puppet state, and millions of lives have been lost, including the president in this timeline. I won't say because I don't know who it would be. And then, so they do get rid of a lot of land from over here, and that's when they decide, let's make a peace treaty. So they take their pens and rulers, a lot of rulers, to draw up a peace treaty. Kentucky doesn't get anything, but Maryland does suffer quite a bit due to that being stolen from them. So now their land looks like this. They take some land, they lose some lands, they gain a little bit of lands, but I'm gonna fill that up with border, because why not? North Carolina does get some lands from Tennessee. Then West Virginia does keep some of their border. And also decides, let's make a puppet state they will call New Spain. I don't know. The puppet state of Virginia, we'll call it. And then that looks like that. And then that looks like that. And Florida does survive a tiny bit down south. Florida, who does still stay in the Purple Alliance, stays. It has been 14 minutes, so I'm gonna make this into a part 2. Goodbye. Wait. Okay.